In the heart of a bustling zoo, laughter filled the morning air. Families gathered near the glass, eyes wide with excitement. Children pointed and gasped as the mighty gorilla moved inside. Among the crowd, a tiny toddler stood, fearless and curious. His blue romper caught the sunlight, his smile pure as gold. Behind the glass, the massive gorilla watched him closely. Their eyes met, beast and baby, two worlds colliding in silence. Suddenly, the gorilla pounded the glass with thunderous force. Gasps echoed. Parents screamed and pulled their kids away. But the toddler didn't flinch. He simply stared, unafraid. Something strange flickered in the gorilla's dark eyes. Sorrow. The crowd fell silent, the zoo frozen in one suspended heartbeat. Then, in the softest motion, the toddler placed his hand on the glass. The gorilla paused, lowering his giant hand to meet it gently. Two worlds, separated by glass, united by innocence. The air shimmered with something unexplainable. Pure connection. No words, no fear, just understanding beyond language. The mother gasped, tears forming as cameras began to roll. That single moment turned into a story the world would never forget. Because sometimes, the smallest souls awaken the biggest hearts. Morning sunlight bathed the zoo in gentle golden warmth. Families strolled between cages, smiles lighting every path. The gorilla enclosure buzzed with laughter and curiosity. Behind the thick glass, a giant creature watched in silence. His deep brown eyes reflected both power and pain untold. Children pointed, pressed fingers to the glass, and giggled. But one tiny toddler stood apart, calm, almost mesmerized. In his blue romper, he toddled closer, curiosity in his gaze. The crowd hushed when the gorilla leaned forward suddenly. His huge frame cast a shadow over the small child below. A tense breath filled the air. Mothers clutched their hearts. The gorilla's muscles rippled, then his fist slammed the glass. A thunderous thud echoed, shaking the ground like thunder. The toddler blinked once, and didn't move away. Gasps broke through the crowd. Cameras rose instantly. The gorilla's eyes burned with something raw, almost human. Fear, anger, or maybe something no one else could see. The toddler tilted his head, as if trying to understand. Between them, only glass. Fragile, invisible, eternal. A moment of danger became a strange kind of connection. Every heartbeat in the crowd synchronized with suspense. Even the keepers froze, unsure of what to do next. Two beings, one wild, one innocent, locked in fate's stare. And destiny had just written the first line of its story. All from one slam, one spark, one fearless child's gaze. Chaos rippled through the zoo, yet the boy remained still. The gorilla pressed closer, breath fogging the thick glass. Each exhale carried weight, like a storm caged by mercy. People shouted, begged the parents to pull the child back. But his mother, trembling, whispered, "Wait, look at him." The toddler smiled faintly, palm rising toward the glass pane. His tiny hand met the cold surface where the gorilla stared. For a heartbeat, the world stopped spinning altogether. The gorilla's nostrils flared. He tilted his massive head. It wasn't rage. It was recognition of something pure. The air thickened with a feeling none could explain. Some said the beast remembered his own lost child. Others believed innocence had tamed his wild soul. No one dared breathe as silence grew powerful, holy. The gorilla slowly placed his hand against the same spot. Tiny fingers and giant ones, separated yet connected. Tears glimmered in strangers' eyes, hearts pounding softly. The toddler laughed, not in fear, but in joy's language. Even the zookeeper's radio crackled and then went quiet. Every soul felt the fragile thread binding two worlds. A story was being born, not of danger, but of compassion. The mother's trembling hand covered her mouth in awe. The gorilla lowered his head, humbled by a child's courage. The zoo that day didn't just witness, it felt something divine. Because sometimes, innocence speaks louder than fear. Deep inside that creature's heart, an old memory stirred. He had once held a baby gorilla, lost too soon to illness. Since that day, rage had replaced the calm in his soul. Every visitor reminded him of what he could never protect. Until that morning, when a human child met his gaze. Something familiar sparked, a light long buried by grief. The gorilla's chest heaved, confusion clouding his instincts. He moved closer, eyes softening like clouds after rain. The toddler babbled something, innocent, gentle, kind. No one understood the words, but the gorilla seemed to. It was as if forgiveness crossed the barrier of language. The boy's smile carried warmth that even glass couldn't stop. The gorilla sat down, massive arms resting near the pane. He watched the boy with the tenderness of a guardian. People whispered, filming the miracle unfolding before them. What began in fear was now melting into compassion. Nature itself seemed to pause, listening in reverence. The gorilla blinked slowly, a gesture of peace, not threat. The child mimicked him, eyes wide with innocent wonder. Two species, one emotion, love, pure and universal. In that instant, humanity and wilderness shook hands. Every person there knew they'd never see such grace again. A beast had remembered his heart because of a child. And the crowd saw that strength isn't measured by power. It's measured by the ability to love, even after loss. The zookeeper stood frozen, heart thundering in disbelief. He'd raised that gorilla, seen his temper, his pain, his rage. Never once had he seen him kneel, not even to rest. But now, before a child, he lowered his mighty head. The keeper's eyes filled. This was no random act of calm. This was healing, raw and real, before hundreds of eyes. The toddler tapped the glass again, smiling playfully. The gorilla responded with a slow nod, as if saying safe. Even the harsh morning sun softened through the trees. Cameras clicked, but no one wanted to break the silence. Every witness felt they were standing in something sacred. The gorilla exhaled deeply, the sound like a sigh of peace. The toddler giggled, placing both hands now on the glass. The keeper turned away briefly, wiping a tear in awe. He whispered, "He remembers. He truly remembers. The bond that years of captivity couldn't create, a child did." Through innocence, walls of fear began to crumble quietly. The gorilla's chest rose and fell slower, calmer now. His gaze no longer wild, but gentle, fatherly even. The toddler pressed his forehead to the glass, whispering softly. The gorilla leaned closer, mirroring the act perfectly. A hush swept through. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. The keeper smiled faintly, whispering, "He's not angry anymore." And for the first time, the cage didn't look like a prison. It looked like the place where a miracle chose to happen. Within minutes, phones recorded the impossible connection. Social media flooded with the clip. Millions watched, crying. People couldn't believe how gentle the giant had become. The toddler, unaware, clapped his hands and laughed again. The gorilla blinked slowly, as though blessing the tiny human. Every comment online spoke of hope reborn in humanity. "Maybe love isn't bound by species," one caption read softly. At the zoo, the crowd erupted into quiet, teary applause. Even the parents, who'd panicked, now felt grateful for the sight. The gorilla stood, touching the glass one last lingering time. Then he turned, stepping back into the green shadows beyond. The toddler waved goodbye, still smiling with pure trust. His mother hugged him tightly, whispering thanks to heaven. The zookeeper whispered, "That child brought him peace." And for once, the zoo wasn't just a place to watch. It healed. News outlets called it the day a gorilla found his heart. Across continents, People replayed the moment in awe. It became a symbol, innocence calming the wildest soul, a story that reminded the world of something forgotten. That love doesn't need language, only connection. The toddler's small gesture touched hearts across nations. And that gorilla, once feared, became a guardian of hope. The glass barrier no longer looked like separation. It looked like proof that even walls can't stop love. Because one tiny hand had bridged an entire world. The zoo fell completely still, as if time had stopped breathing. Even the birds paused their songs, sensing something sacred. The gorilla's chest rose and fell, heavy with emotion. The toddler tilted his head, eyes gleaming with wonder. Onlookers whispered, unsure whether to fear or marvel. Behind that glass, something powerful had just been exchanged. A look, a pause, a silent promise between two beings. The zookeeper stood frozen, hand trembling near the gate. He'd seen gorillas angry, but never gentle like this. The toddler pressed closer, small fingers against the glass. The gorilla mirrored him, massive palm meeting his hand. A hush spread like a wave through the watching crowd. Every parent felt a lump rise in their throat. Every child stared in awe, feeling something they couldn't name. It was no longer about a zoo. It was about humanity. The gorilla blinked slowly, as if holding back tears. And the toddler giggled, pure, innocent, fearless. In that sound, the gorilla found calm, a forgotten peace. They weren't enemies. They weren't different. They were reflections of each other's hearts. A child's purity had tamed a wild soul. And in that fragile moment, the world seemed softer. Because sometimes, love doesn't need. A crowd member raised their phone, hands shaking. The scene unfolding before them was too beautiful to believe. Dozens began recording, afraid to blink and miss the miracle. The gorilla sat down, his massive form now gentle and calm. The toddler tapped the glass again, smiling brightly. The sound echoed like a heartbeat between worlds. The gorilla leaned forward, gazing deep into the child's soul. Behind the lens, everyone felt their eyes sting with tears. This wasn't just an encounter. It was connection. It was nature and innocence intertwining in silence. A reporter whispered, "Are we witnessing empathy?" The zookeeper nodded slowly, unable to speak. Every animal nearby seemed quieter, softer, calmer. It was as if the zoo itself bowed to the moment. The toddler laughed again, pressing his palm once more. And the gorilla, the mighty silverback, responded gently. Two hands, divided by glass, united by love. The footage would soon flood the world with emotion. People wouldn't see danger. They'd see compassion. They wouldn't see a cage. They'd see a bridge. Between innocence and instinct. Between fear and understanding. And that's when everyone realized this was history. A toddler had done what humanity often forgets to do. He looked without judgment and saw a soul. By evening, the video had gone viral across every platform. Millions watched in awe as the gorilla met the baby's gaze. Comment sections overflowed with tears and gratitude. Proof that kindness still exists, one user wrote softly. News anchors replayed the clip, voice trembling with awe. The zoo was flooded with visitors the next morning. But none came for spectacle. They came for hope. The gorilla seemed different that day, peaceful, aware. He'd sit near the glass, waiting for the child's return. And the toddler's parents brought him back, smiling shyly. When their eyes met again, even nature seemed to smile. The wind rustled softly through the trees. Sunlight poured down like a gentle blessing. The gorilla placed his hand on the glass first this time. The toddler mirrored it, his tiny hand glowing in light. Crowds gathered once more, silent, reverent. Because they knew. They were witnessing something divine. A connection beyond species, beyond walls, beyond fear. The zoo director said later, That child taught us all. And he was right. Empathy had no language. It didn't roar or scream. It simply was. That day, humanity rediscovered its gentlest truth. That love is nature's oldest, strongest instinct, and it only takes one innocent soul to remind us what it truly means to be alive. In a world that often fears what it doesn't understand, a child reminded us that love needs no translation. He didn't see danger. He saw a friend behind the glass. And in his innocent gaze, even a giant found peace. The gorilla, once feared, became a mirror of humanity. Because kindness isn't taught, it's born in purity. That moment showed that empathy has no species, no walls. Only hearts willing to see beyond the surface. The toddler's hand told a story no words ever could. A story of trust, softness, and silent courage. If only the world could love the way the child did, there would be fewer cages and more understanding, fewer walls and more bridges between souls. The zoo didn't just witness an encounter that day. It witnessed the rebirth of something ancient,